It is Saturday, March 2nd or March 1st, actually, 2025. It is just about 11 o'clock here on the East Coast. And just a short time ago, Elimination Chamber 2025 from Toronto, Canada, the Rogers Center wrapped up. I am Brandon LeClair here representing Pro Wrestling Torch on this special edition of Wrestling Night in America. As you know, we bring you these special live Wrestling Night in America episodes after each and every WWE premium live event and AEW pay-per-view. Tonight, of course, we are discussing Elimination Chamber, and it was a doozy of a show. So much to talk about. I don't want to bury the lead at all. We're certainly going to cover the big story of the night first, and plenty of you in the chat already. We welcome, as many comments, questions, whatever you want to throw out there. We are looking for your thoughts on that main event segment as well as the rest of the show. You are, of course, welcome to join in on the conversation. We certainly welcome it. And here to help me do all of that is longtime PW Torch VIP member and occasional contributor as well. So glad to have Sean here with me. Sean, welcome to the show.
Brandon, thanks for having me on. Let me do this with you. I asked Wade yesterday when I was on the SmackDown show with him. I said, "Is it okay to co-host? As long as you're okay, then it's good." He gave me his blessing, I guess. So this is going to be a lot of fun. There's so much to talk about. I can't believe what happened just happened, but bury the lead. Go for it. Wow.
Yeah, I am shocked to say the least. Listen, I was just texting back and forth with PW Torch contributor Frank Pettiani, and I was on his show on Thursday. We did a great episode of Pro Wrestling Then and Now. Check it out on demand when you have a chance. We were talking about the third and fourth episode of Saturday night's main event. And early on in the show, we were discussing the story between The Rock and Cody Rhodes and where we thought it was headed. Now, during that show, I threw out the idea that, it seemed to me that the most likely of scenarios headed into WrestleMania was either we would see Cody Rhodes versus CM Punk or Cody Rhodes versus John Cena. Now, in both of those instances, I thought, these are fun matches. They're interesting matches. They work as a WrestleMania main event, but they don't seem particularly noteworthy, especially compared to, say, last year's main event between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, which felt monumental in a lot of ways. And I noted that the one way that I thought that you could make this seem like a really big deal was if you had John Cena representing The Rock. I threw out the idea that, it could be Punk as well, but I thought that just from the perspective of the characters they play, it would make a little bit more sense for it to be Cena over Punk. But when I threw that out there, I even noted while we were talking, I said, like, this is not something that I see being a plausible scenario in any way. I just think that it would be the most interesting. And then for them to actually go ahead and do it, this is, I was scrolling through the chat here before we went live, Sean, and I saw comments, ranging all the way, noting that this was the most shocking heel turn since Hogan and the NWO. And, hindsight is always going to be 2020, but it feels that way. Just right out of the gate, it feels like an impossibility. I noted this in my report for PW Torch, even as they telegraphed the turn, when Cena hugged Cody Rhodes and stared ahead at The Rock, and you thought, any other wrestler, go through the list of any modern day wrestler, if you see that happen, in that moment, if you've watched enough wrestling, they're turning heel right there in that moment. But because it was John Cena, even in that moment, I thought, no, they're not going to do it. Like they're making it look that way, but he's going to pull away. They're going to tease this, but they're not going to actually do it. And lo and behold, they did it. Uh,
Yep. Yep. They
Sean,
sure did.
just out of the gate, what what is your just give me your overall thoughts, the idea of Cena as a heel, how they executed this angle, and then we'll get into the minutia of it. But go ahead, just overall.
So as far as the way they executed it, I do think they did it really well. I do think it was a really really fun angle. I thought when Cena stayed in the ring the whole time, I had a feeling like, okay, this is it. He's actually gonna do this. He's gonna turn heel. Like I cannot believe after we wanted this for so long. If 10 years ago, 12 years ago, for him to do this and he just would not do it. Vince was
20
just against
years. I
it.
mean,
Yeah,
think
yeah.
like back 05, 06, you had people on the internet saying like, man, if they just turned him heel.
And so they did, and then they executed it really well. Now I will say, I was talking to my friend. I did not like. I do love Cody's line when he said, "I've sold my soul to the fans and to the people already." I did
Mm.
like that line. I didn't need to go f yourself. It was cool. I mean, if you're into those kind of words, I don't think a face should even though he's doing it to The Rock and he's getting it in his face. I don't think we needed to use that term. He could have said "screw you, Rock," "screw you." That's nitpicking. I'm not I don't curse, but that doesn't mean people do. It is what it is, and it had a validity to it when he said it. I mean, it did have some oomph, and I did like that. I just wouldn't have said that phrase myself, but it got a good reaction from the crowd. They were into it, and then when Cena executed the turn, I thought really, 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 really well. I thought it was really fun, really good. I mean, it intrigues me to see how he can explain it in so many ways. We'll talk about that as we're going along. I mean, there's many ways he can talk about why he's doing this. We know him and The Rock are close now, obviously. So it makes sense that he would go with The Rock and want to have a relationship with him and want to do whatever, they can play that here in the next few weeks because he's going to be on a lot more, which is good. I'm glad he's going to be on TV more in this role because it'll be fun seeing him in this heel role because we haven't seen it in so long, which is going to be a lot of fun too. So I thought they executed it, pretty well, and I'm just intrigued to see how they build to this because it puts heat on Cena and it makes us want to get behind him again. And this is another storyline he can sink his teeth into, and I really enjoy it. I'm still not into what Cena has done up until this point. We'll talk about the chamber match itself, but yeah, I thought it was really well done. I thought for what they did, I'm intrigued. I really am. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sets the stage for a really really fascinating WrestleMania season, and you kind of alluded to it. Cena is going to be around at least more than he has been. I think that's key here.
Hmm.
It's going to be important for him to really shine and do some of the best work of his career.
Hmm.
There was
Yep.
a moment after the initial turn when the shock was still kind of setting in with the fans where they were cheering it, and I was like,
Yes.
oh man, like, because here's the thing, when you pull off a turn that people have clamored for that long, and
Hmm.
you have a guy who has sort of been the antithesis of cool as a
Right.
babyface,
Hmm.
the notion of him becoming a heel, something that they've wanted for so long, you are really toying with the possibility that he's going to get cheered for this. I mean, Cena has sort of overcome that status as being the uncool lead babyface. People have gotten over that, and they're
Yeah.
into him again because he's a legacy act who largely isn't, hogging up space on the main roster, keeping other talent down. He just comes in as the legend, the jovial legend, and people have come around to him now in this current phase of his career. So with that said, the notion of getting to see him as the bad guy for the first time is intriguing and exciting for people. I'm glad that they took the beat down one, two, even three steps farther after
Yep.
that, because
I love. Yep.
just kicking Cody below the belt, just
Not
hitting
enough.
him with the title, it wouldn't have done it. It would have put Cena in that light of being the cool guy. And having him be violent and vicious and making Cody bleed and standing there with The Rock and watching as The Rock whips him with this belt, they needed that. They needed that kind of beatdown. I think they got the right kind of sympathy on Cody. I think Cody is still in a really good spot as a babyface where
Yep.
he can sort of weather and shoulder a positive reaction to Cena if Cena gets it in certain cities. I mean, they really set this up in a really compelling way. Now, with all of that being said, I I do want to acknowledge and get into a little bit of the fact that there's elements of this that don't make a lot of sense. They they set up a really compelling angle for WrestleMania, no question. And the moment of Cena turning heel was gratifying. It's something that they're going to be able to show for years to come. Huge deal. But as people are raising in the chat, and I'm going to go through and put some of these up. Standard deviation saying Cena just earned his way into the main event of WrestleMania without The Rock. Perfectly good point. Why does Cena now suddenly need The Rock? Are they prioritizing this particular moment to have a big, you know, like year defining moment, show defining moment at the expense of logical storytelling? Because it begs the question, what if Cena hadn't won the Elimination Chamber? What if Punk had won? Cena wouldn't be in the ring anymore. So how would Cena have been The Rock's guy? What if Cody had said yes? If Cody had sold his soul to The Rock, what does that mean for Cena? Is Cena just the backup now? To me, the only way that you can explain this away is if we come to find out that this happened in the moment, that Cena wasn't a hired gun for The Rock prior to giving that hug to Cody and seeing the signal from The Rock. In other words, that The Rock was stepping out on a limb when he gave the throat slit gesture to Cena, and Cena just took it. Because otherwise, how do you get to this point? How do you reconcile that? Sean, where do you land on that? And can you make sense of, how logically how they get here with Cena, aside from just the shock of it all?
Yeah, there's a lot of steps they need to talk about, and that's what they do. They have to explain this really well. Of when was Cena thinking about this all along? Like, did he, like you said, did he just turn with The Rock right there? Was The Rock behind getting Cena? Because Cena, again, we said it when he first got in the chamber. It's just weird that a face would just be like, "Yeah, I'm going to get in the chamber. I don't have to qualify. I don't have to do anything. I'm just Super
Mhm.
Cena. I'm going to get in there, and then Was The Rock behind that all along? Did he want him in that spot, and he was just planning this all along? I hope they, do tell us how that came about, because it is critical. They do need to tell us that, and then why Cena would just get with The Rock to all of a sudden just turn on Cody, because it seems like there's nothing with Cena and Cody that we know of. We haven't seen of anything, so it just would seem, if you're not watching a lot, like, why would Cena just randomly turn on Cody, even with The Rock's help?
Mhm.
Like, why would he need to turn on? Cena's got everything The Rock has. Why would he need to do this? So I think there's a lot of explaining. They do need to talk about this in the next few weeks, like what led up to this, how this happened, why he's doing the stuff he's doing. But it was, like I said, it caught so off guard. It made it interesting in the moment, and you get the shock of it all. And Hunter said it's industry changing. Yeah, in a sense it is, because we never thought we would ever see this. So he was right. But yeah, they do need to do the good storytelling, explain why this happened, why Cena would want to do this, why he'd want to turn, why he'd want to join The Rock, even though we know Cena and Rock have been on good terms for a long time. Like, why would he get behind him now in this weird of a moment? So yeah.
Yeah, CW raising the point in the chat. Was Cena teasing the turn? And Sean, you kind of brought this up too, by declaring himself for the chamber rather than earning it, and saying it's farewell tour, not showing up for 2 months of it. I mean, the second part of that comment, CW, I think is definitely something that they're going to play into. I mean, now
Mhm.
that Cena is going to be working heel, they can lean heavily into the fact that he's not there every week. And you can bet that baby faces are going to capitalize on that in their promos whenever they're working with Cena, because it's easy. It's easy fodder. It's
Hmm.
exactly what
Yeah.
Cena did to The Rock during their feud. And it makes perfect sense that that's the direction that they would go. I do think that they should harken back that connection as far as Cena getting himself in the Elimination Chamber the way that he did. It still doesn't get us to the point of what if Cena didn't win tonight? And
Yeah.
I've seen it raised in the chat as well. Cena really won because of Seth, not because of
He
anything
did.
Cena did
Nope.
or that The Rock did, but rather because Seth just couldn't let it go with CM Punk. So
Hmm.
that's sort of the issue here. And Azan brings it up as well. Did Rock know John was going to win the Chamber? Well, how can you, unless you start to get really into the weeds here, and we start saying, well, The Rock knows the creative plans, and they're bringing that out on TV, which obviously is
Yeah.
not the direction that you want to take this.
Right.
Uh, I think that a lot of people in the chat saying as well, like Rock put Cena in the chamber. That's all fine. Like they can tell that story, and I think that they probably should tell that
Yeah.
story.
They
But
need
The
to.
Rock, yeah, but The Rock could not. The Rock did not have any involvement in ensuring a win for John Cena. And no story that you can tell is going to, you can't logically tie Seth Rollins into this, him, screwing over Punk, all of that stuff. So there's got to be some jump there. They've got to do something. And I think at first glance, just looking at this, to me, the only thing that makes sense is it was decided on a whim that, maybe Rock had these conversations with everyone in the chamber.
Right.
And, but
Whoever
then,
won, he was the guy. Whoever won, he would be their guy. Whoever won, so to speak.
right,
Type thing.
right. But then you figure, why isn't, you know, CM Punk it appears as though Punk is going to be a babyface going forward. We have no reason to
Mhm.
suspect otherwise.
Definitely.
If they
Yeah.
want to go down the road of, well, Rock talked to everyone in the chamber, then why wouldn't Punk tell Cody that? Why wouldn't Damian Priest tell Cody that? I mean, they both have visibly good relationships with Cody. So that would be a lot to explain away if you tried to go down that road. So that leads me to think that the only logical way to get out of this is going to have it be a spur of the moment thing where The Rock was essentially, you know, throwing up a Hail Mary when he did the throat slit and Cena took it. I don't know if they're going to go in that direction, but I just don't know how else you make total sense of it otherwise. And I'm also not completely discrediting the notion that maybe they just won't. Maybe they'll just leave that part out. And look, like there is logical fallacies in wrestling all over the place all the time across multiple promotions, across multiple angles,
Yeah.
every given week. They can still tell a very compelling story without explaining that portion of it. But with how exciting this is, with how big of a deal it is, with how monumental it is for John Cena to be working heel for the first time in his career while a star, I would like for them to, cross the T's and dot the I's. And I'm just not sure that we're going to get all the way there. Sean, can you think of any other way that they can get to a logical place? And a lot of stuff in the chat coming through about Cena's motivations for working with The Rock. I think that's easy. I mean, they can get
Mhm.
there with no trouble at all. I'm just hung up on how did they get it? How did they get there tonight?
Yeah, knowing, yeah, like, and that's what somebody said, I think in the chat that like, Cena didn't have to win, but yeah, he did though in the sense of if whoever wins the chamber, yeah, Cena's the Rock's guy, but then the other guy's like, well, I won the chamber, I have my match. Why did Cena get
Right.
over? Why would Cena get a match over me when I won the chamber and he didn't? So that to me, there's still the logic there that doesn't. They'd have to like tell that story too, which wouldn't. That still gets more convoluted even than what we're talking about. So it's like Yeah, that is kind of a loophole that I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head, and I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but it is hard to tell that story. Like, how did they know Cena was going to win, and then all of a sudden? But I feel like they're just going to say. I just assume they're going. Cena did it right there, right in the click of the moment. Rock was there. Boom. I've got and tell that story of why he decided to go with them. But again, they
Mhm.
could tell the opposite story too, of he knew all along. And but again, the Cena winning the chamber, how are they knowing that? That's still hard to get past. It really is. But it was such a well done angle for what they did in the moment that I'm willing to let it play out and see where they go with it. Maybe they can compel me as to why they did that and kind of try to fill in the loopholes as best they can.
Yeah, JK in the chat saying Rock and Cena are both company guys through and through and Hollywood guys. Cody,
Hmm.
from their perspective, didn't do what was best for business last year, and The Rock brought that up. And yeah, that's exactly part of the reason I mentioned. I think telling the story of why Cena would work with The Rock is really easy. I mean, you can absolutely raise the counterpoint that Cena has it all. Why would he want to do this? Well, Cena has it all outside of wrestling. But if we're just looking at within the confines of WWE storytelling, Cena has had nothing for a very long time. I mean, they've made a very big deal out of the fact that Cena hasn't won a match in what, 2000 something days. It's very easy to tell the story of a legend at the tail end of his career, knowing that he's in his twilight and setting a closing date on his career, saying December that he is done. Uh, it's very easy for you to get into the head of that person where they would think, I don't have it like I used to. I want to go out on top. I want to do this one more time. I need some help, and I'm willing to take the help to get there. It's very easy to tell that story with Cena that after all this time, after everything that he's given, you know, he wants one more, and he doesn't feel like he had it without some backing. And
Right.
I
Yeah.
think you can go so many different directions with this. I mean, Cena can go after the fans for the way that they booed him for years and years and years. And now suddenly they're just okay with him because what? He's a legend who isn't around much anymore. There's so many different things that they can do here. I think that stuff is really easy. Derek Hubbard in the chat. This is a really good point. Subtle
Yeah.
foreshadowing of Cena taking the opportunistic victory over Punk before the heel turn. That's really good too. I mean, that is very different than what we would typically see of Cena. I mean, previous Cena might have attacked Seth Rollins instead of just immediately going for the win on Punk.
Hmm.
They showed a number of times from the Royal Rumble up to, Cena declaring himself as being in the chamber, all the way up to the actual match tonight, where Cena shows signs of being desperate, of feeling like he can't get it done, and being willing to go out, go all out and do anything necessary to get
Yeah.
what he believes he needs to finish up his career, which is one more WrestleMania main event. I think that they're really able to. Um, I think that they're really going to be able to tell that story well. Standard deviation bringing up the point that Word of Fear Rock overruled the Booker since they changed the order of the card. I I don't imagine they're gonna go down that road. I
I don't think
can't
so either.
imagine them doing like the multifaceted layers of it, like basically wrestling Inception. I mean, they've broken down the fourth wall enough. I don't think that we're going to see just like the complete dissolution of kayfabe to the point that we're just openly acknowledging predetermined winners on TV. I think that would be a bridge too far to try to sell people. I would be I would be shocked if that's the direction that they go here. I think they're going to find a different way to tell that story. Um, Sean, what did you make of, shock of the whole thing aside? What did you make of Cena's demeanor? Like, do you think that he sold it well? Like, this is the first time this guy is playing a bad guy in pro wrestling in what, 22 years?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he sold it pretty well. I mean, was definitely still with Cody. You could see when Cody was speaking, like behind him, like just kind of listening. Wasn't didn't really give anything away that I can remember. Like looking at it directly, he was like behind Cody, and then he was like kind of getting the fans into it when he said go f yourself, and he was like, I thought he sold it pretty well. I mean, I thought it was fine. And like you said, I think they're ultimately going to go with, from what I've been saying, is Cena's looked so bad in the ring because he, just wear and tear, hadn't been around for a long time. I need an edge, and this is the way to get me an edge, get me past you. I want my 17th title, and this is the best way to get it, and that's what I went with. And Cody, you're just collateral damage, man. I'm just going to go through you and whatever. I mean, it's an easy story to tell. Yeah, is every story perfect? Yeah, there's some that are, some that aren't. But if you tell a compelling story enough to get people invested in it, and as much as I have not been a Cena guy, this is his last year. You're going to go with what the best thing is in that moment. And this right now is what the options were. If Cena's going to be around, this is fine for me. I mean, this is a way to get him, his last main event, whatever, but he's not the boring babyface we've seen for 20 years. It's a heel with a different character and a different way of looking at things. And, for what they did, like I said, I'm fine with it. I'm intrigued to see where they go next. And Cody, again, as a fan of Cody, it's a way for me to get behind him and be compelled by what he's going to do. And I think the promo, if Cena is invested, truly invested in this heel character, which I think he will be, well, I pray that he will be. I think the promo battles are going to be a lot of fun, and I'm intrigued for the next few months what they do going into Mania.
Yeah, there's a lot of different directions that they can take, and a lot of different avenues that they have to get to where they need to go at WrestleMania. I mean, I can't think of. We talked a lot about, after that promo a couple of weeks ago on SmackDown with The Rock and Cody Rhodes, how you then pivot to a main event at WrestleMania with either The Rock's story looming in the background or having someone act as a proxy for The Rock. And in in either of those scenarios, I thought that they were going to have a hard time telling a really compelling story there, largely because I didn't give any consideration to the idea of John Cena being The Rock's proxy.
Exactly.
And I think when you flip it all on its head and that's what you're staring at in the face, it becomes super easy to tell a compelling story there, and really fun. Um,
Yeah.
I do want to bring out too. We'll talk about this in the match itself, but just running counter a little bit to the idea that Cena was sort of turning heel early. Justin D'Amber in the chat, while Cena had Punk in the STF, he was saying, "I'm sorry," and I noted that too in my
Yeah.
report for PW Torch. He realized that he was taking advantage of the situation. It was sort of like the old Cena was slipping away. And we'll get into the details of that main event match itself. Sean, I'm sure that the conversation about Cena is going to be woven throughout the fabric of all of this because it affects so much going forward. But anything else that you want to add right now before we kind of do a rundown of the actual card?
No, not really. Like I said, no. We could talk about it a little more as we go through the show. But no, it was but it was like I said. I'm just intrigued. I think it was well done for what they did. Caught me off guard, and it can be bad, but this one was in a good way. So not much more right now.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's pivot here for the time being. We'll run down the actual card, which all it will lead in obviously to what we've been discussing here to start the show off. We kicked things off with just before going live on the actual broadcast, a rendition of both the Canadian and US national anthems. I bring that up only because Pat McAfee would not stop harping on the fact that the Canadian crowd booed the US national anthem all night, which I thought was an interesting anecdote in the sense that we I just talked about this with Frank on Pro Wrestling Then and Now this week. WWE has been very adamant lately about staying out of the political sphere entirely. And so to have distanced themselves from it all so strongly, and then to have had Pat kind of interject that back into the conversation tonight, I thought was interesting. I'm not surprised that he did it once because Pat, has a long leash and it's just something that Pat would do. I'm more surprised that he wasn't told not to do it again because they have pushed, so strongly to try to keep everything in the political realm just outside of the product. And personally, I like it that way. I would prefer that they treat their product as an entertainment escape rather than an extension of what you might see in the news. So just a little thing there to kick off the discussion here. Did you notice Sean, Pat bringing that up, multiple times, and then of course Logan Paul later carrying the American flag to the ring as a heel? They were very much aware that it was going to be viewed as a heel gesture. What did you make of all that?
I did notice that Pat did that, and I didn't. I mean, I didn't really think anything about it. It didn't really, but it didn't bother me. Or I didn't really think about it much. It didn't like make me go. But I do wish they would just kind of not really make any mention of it. I mean, yeah, obviously the fans. There's gonna be fans that are gonna boo that because obviously if you're Canadian, you love Canada, and you're not gonna you're gonna. I didn't take it personally, and nobody really should, and Pat really shouldn't even mention it. I just thought they should have kind of left, like you said, left it out. But it was what it was for me. I didn't really think much of it.
Yeah, it's sort of an extension of what we've been seeing like at the hockey games as of late. With
Right.
the introduction of the tariffs and everything, there have been boos at these Canadian events, and yeah, I mean, I would prefer that they just. I get that you're not going to stop Pat McAfee from saying it once. I'm just surprised that there wasn't a motion to sort of like sort of have them tone it down. Um, Anthony Anthony in the chat saying that happened at the NHL All Star Game. Yes, that's kind of where it began. It's I think I would disagree with the notion that it's a rivalry at this point. It's pretty clear that this has become a hot button issue in recent weeks, and it's not a normal thing. I mean, you're not typically seeing the national anthem be booed at Canadian events. This is a political thing. So yeah, I would have preferred that they just put the kibosh to it after McAfee did it once, but not a huge thing. Yeah, standard deviation as well. Keep politics out of the
Yeah.
show. I
Amen.
very much would prefer that they aired on that side. But after that, we get the opening introductions from Alicia Taylor introducing the women's elimination chamber match. This, of course, for a shot at Rhea Ripley's championship at or Io Sky, as they did mention. Um, Interesting that they decided to book this match on Raw for Monday, given that it. I get it. I get that they need to have this final piece of the rivalry between Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, but I almost wish that they had gotten through it prior to the Chamber, only so that we're not left with sort of the we're not left with like sort of the um like the extra the fluff of is it going to be Rhea or is it going to be Io? Like,
Mhm.
I just like the cleanliness of in the men's chamber, for example. Alicia Taylor's able to say the winner faces Cody Rhodes for the championship at WrestleMania. I like the idea of just being able to say winner faces Rhea Ripley, not winner faces Rhea Ripley or Io Sky. I get why they do it, but just a small little thing there. Regardless, I think we all know what the result is going to be on Monday.
Yes.
So opening match is women's elimination chamber match. The women beginning inside the pods are Roxanne Perez, Bayley, Bianca Belair, um, and Alexa Bliss. Liv Morgan and Naomi begin the match one on one, except they do not, because as soon as the bell rings, before they're able to lock up or do anything, Jade Cargill's music hits. There is kind of the cute, like, oh, so convenient spot of the officials just happen to leave the chamber door open after the bell rang so that Jade Cargill can get inside. I think it would have been cooler and a lot more logical if Jade Cargill just ripped that sucker open because she's so damn strong. It just it's a little nitpicky thing, and I don't by any means want to make too big of a deal out of it because the moment that followed was great, but they had a opportunity there to just make Jade look really cool, and instead they went with the illogical thing of keeping the door open. So Jade busts into the cage. She looks like she's going to attack Liv Morgan, instead attacks Naomi. Chaos ensues. We have a really big spot with Jade slamming the chamber door on Naomi's like neck and head. It
Yeah.
takes her out of the match officially. So then it's a 5-woman chamber. End result of this one, Bianca Belair wins this thing in just over 29 minutes. She hits a KOD on Liv Morgan after a pretty solid exchange. I like this a lot. I thought that the opening run between Jade and Naomi was great. It was a really, really good way to kick things off, get the crowd hot right out of the gate. I thought that Bianca was excellent in her selling from inside the pod. Like, she would just do anything in that moment to get out, didn't care about the match, didn't care about winning, just wanted to check on her friends and see what was going on. I thought that was just really, really well done. Tons of props to Bianca on that. Uh, other things worth noting here. Liv Morgan, hell of a performance. I thought that she was really the star of this match. I like Morgan's character work, but I don't typically feel as though Liv is doing anything all that special in the ring. Tonight, I thought was a step, a really big step in a different direction for her. Really good stuff from her throughout. Crowd struggled a little bit in the beginning after the stuff with Jade and Naomi. I think because Cole even said like the win kind of got sucked out of the place. There was so much excitement over that moment that
Mhm.
things kind of took a downturn for a few minutes. But I mean, the remaining women, the 5 remaining women worked so hard that the last 12 to 15 minutes or so, they went all out. And some of those, the I noted in my report for PW Torch the spot with Bianca whipping her braid on with Morgan, uh,
That was something, man. That was something.
violent, and the the wealth that Morgan came up with after that was nasty.
Nasty.
Yeah, and just a lot of good stuff in this one. Like I said, Bianca pulls this one off. Sean, take it away. Anything you want to talk about with this chamber match?
No, I definitely agree. It was a lot of fun. It actually really was. I know Cole at some point was like, Jade just attacking. Why would she not go after Liv? And it's like, well, obviously Jade, story wise, would know who attacked her. Like, why would she go after Liv if Liv didn't do it? Like, you're gonna go after who attacked you. Like, that was just so dumb on his part. Like, why are you? So she, that was a cool spot. Now I'm curious where they go with that. We're gonna kind of see the build and where that goes. If it's just Naomi, if Bianca still had anything to do with it, if she was still in on it, that'll be really interesting to see how they go there. The match as a whole was just fun. The spots were really good. I thought everybody executed the spots really well. I thought it was definitely one of the better women's matches overall. Like as far as a lot of people, a lot of women being in the ring, they just all did a really nice job. Liv, like you said, was fantastic. Liv is a heel. She's been good now for the last year, and her ring work has been a lot better. She's been just her storytelling in the ring has been a lot better. But Bailey and Roxanne did some good stuff. I think they're building to a match with them, which could be a lot of fun. Hopefully, it's a one-on-one, but they could put some other women in there. But I thought they did some stuff with themselves. With Bianca, that's overall. Alexa, I did not want her, winning the chamber. I just don't think they've done. I think that I'm into her. The fans as a whole are into her, but her character just isn't doing much right now. I don't know where they're going with her. I'm kind of interested to see what the next step for her is. And then with Bianca now winning, I want to know. I want her to go heel. I just don't know if that's the trajectory of where they're going. I mean, a face-face matchup is fine if they go that route, but I love heel face matchups better. I think they could do more with Bianca as a heel. I think she needs to turn heel right now, even though she did a great job as a face tonight. I mean, like you said, the way she sold it, because she could have gone over the top. She could have wanted to run out and try to, but she ultimately realized, okay, no, I want to be there for my friend, but I still want to try to win this chamber and go for a title shot. So I'm glad she focused back on the match, and that made a lot of sense there. So I just thought it was a really good match overall, and I thought everybody played their part well. And like I said, the Bianca Rhea, I'm just intrigued, even though, like you said, we know Rhea's going to beat Io tomorrow, Monday night, but to see how they build that match up and where they are as characters going into that should be I'm intrigued to see what they do there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the point about Bianca in the beginning there, like after Naomi got taken out, because it would have been, a lesser producer and lesser wrestlers in this match could have overlooked the opportunity for Belair to be in peril early in the match, because everything about the way that those first few minutes went down should say that Belair should be at her weakest point when she enters the match, because she's just distraught
Mhm.
and emotionally she is somewhere else. And they played into that. They let Morgan lead the way and really take it to Belair in those opening minutes. And I thought that was really strong storytelling,
Yeah.
exactly the direction that they should have gone, and just really smart. I mean, you don't always see that kind of logic and smart booking in a lot of these big matches. And I thought they did a really, really good job there. Uh, I, I I'm really curious, like you said, to see where they're going with Belair for this Rhea Ripley feud, because obviously the most interesting direction you can take is a babyface versus a heel. It's never going to be a face versus face matchup is never going to be quite as interesting as a good, meat and potatoes babyface versus heel. I
Right.
think that Belair's character as a babyface has probably run its course. I don't think that it's like a, end of the world type deal if they don't turn her, but be I think that it would be better to have her play the heel opposite of Rhea. But the question is how do you get there right now without taking the focus away from the Rhea story? If Belair is revealed to be involved, and as a result is going to be, going to war, presumably with Jade Cargill, then her
Hmm.
focus is going to be off of Rhea Ripley. You don't want that you don't want to be telling that type of story leading into WrestleMania with one of your main event women's matches. And you also don't want them to not be able to not be able to follow up on the Naomi and Jade situation, because people are going to want to see that match. They're going to want to see Jade and Bianca, and they're not going to get it because Belair has already got her date set for WrestleMania. So I am interested to see how this whole thing plays out. I do think it's fascinating. I think that, elsewhere in the chamber, we got some clues as to maybe other directions that they might be looking for WrestleMania. It seems like there is something brewing between Liv Morgan and Alexa Bliss, which I think could be interesting. It's an interesting direction for Morgan to take. Bliss is obviously not at a level right now where it makes sense for her to be a title challenger, like you kind of
Yeah.
brought up, Sean. But she is incredibly over,
She
always
is.
has been, and is a really great at the character stuff. I mean, Bliss's weakest point has always been the in-ring work, but I think she's good enough that her stellar character work can kind of carry her over the edge. So I would imagine that they're planning something for her at WrestleMania. I just don't know if it, are they going to have time for something like a one-on-one with Liv Morgan, or are they both thrown into some sort of multi-person situation? Anything you can think of there? Jeremy Diaz in the chat saying Lexa and Liv will play out in Judgment Day versus the Wyatt Six, which definitely makes some sense if that's the direction that they go for WrestleMania, if the Wyatt Six is ready.
Yeah, which I don't really. I'm not a Wyatt Six guy myself, so I wouldn't be that interested in that. I think an Alexa Liv singles match would be a lot more fun, but that seems to be where they're going. I wanted Alexa just to get on her own, do her own thing, because I loved the old Mean Girl Alexa. I loved that character, and I just think her carrying the Lily doll just it doesn't intrigue me. I'm not really interested by it, but I think her and Liv would be a fun feud. Just going back to the Bianca and Jade, that's what's so funny about this and intriguing is, when Naomi gets attacked and Bianca is like obviously sad for her friend, which, to me would assume, well, she's got to be in on it, but it didn't seem like she was in on it. It just seemed like, oh, my friend's getting beat up, and maybe she did do this, but I'm sad for her. I don't know how they play that. That's what I'm really intrigued by, how they play that, because I assumed in my head going into tonight that they would wait to maybe bring Jade back the night after Mania and then start the build there
Yeah.
afterwards. So when Jade first came out, it was kind of shocking, like, wow, they're really going to some of this now. And so, yeah, that's what I don't like, is it does muddy up with Bianca dealing with Naomi and Jade, but then she's got she's got to focus on Rhea. I really need to know how they're going to play that, because that's the next few weeks are going to be critical on that too. They've got to kind of get us into why is Bianca truly against Jade with Naomi, or where they're going with that. They've got to make that a little more clear here, hopefully in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I thought that Bianca did a nice job of not tipping her hand in either
Yeah.
direction with her reaction. I mean, it was just like genuine shock and awe and concern for her friend.
Mhm.
And I think
Right.
that was the right way to play it. I
It
think,
was.
Belair's reaction is whatever direction they go, whether Belair was in on it or she is completely clueless and not in on it at all, her reaction tonight is perfectly plausible and logical. I mean, either way, it makes sense, because if she is on it, if she is in on it, then one, she's still concerned for Naomi, but two, she needs to feign shock because she doesn't want people finding out that she's in on it. So either way, I think what she did makes a lot of sense. All right, before we jump into the next match, we do have a VIP caller on the line with us, and I will bring him in to get some comments here before we jump through the rest of the card. Brian from Phoenix, thanks so much for joining us. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brandon. Hey, Sean. How are you both doing? Hopefully, you both have a really good night. Sean, great to see you. I think we haven't talked in a really long time, so hopefully everybody's having a really good night.
Yeah, Brian, good to talk to you, man. Good
Yeah.
to talk to you. Glad you're here.
I'm glad to be here as well. I signed on kind of late, and I'll have a couple comments, and I'll let you talk to some more people. Hey, Janae, too, by the way. So on of course, 100% shocked. You know, I try not to read spoilers, Brandon and Sean, because I like to be surprised, like I'm sure like everybody else. But I put a picture on formerly Twitter X, that look that John Cena had when he was hugging Cody and he looked back at the Rock. That screen grab picture image is going to live on like forever. I was thinking about the time where when Triple H turned heel on Shawn Michaels, and it was the time that Shawn got thrown into a car and nobody knew who did it, and Hunter was all upset about it until Michael said it was you, and you can see that look on Hunter's face change from being like concerned to just being, oh man, I got caught, but I'm going to own it. It's just going to be one of those things that we'll be looking back at for years. So I'm going to take this again. I'm try to go to some place that you probably haven't talked about yet. Again, I'm sorry about calling it a little bit late, but so Damian Priest got another one up on Drew McIntyre. So I'm assuming that's going to be a WrestleMania match. And just have you two and then the people in the chat as well, hi people in the chat, talk about that. What do you think about that match? You know, it's going to be something that just we kind of, you know, didn't think too much more about after it happened. You know, Drew has that look on his face that he's like gotten great with, that look of shock, upset, mad, all those things right there. So where do you see that match going and probably WrestleMania?
Yeah, Sean, go ahead, take that first.
Yeah, no, Brian, I'm glad you brought that up, man. I was thinking that the first two, you know, especially when it happened when Drew first got eliminated. You know, of course, the fan in me was like, "Oh man, that's so sad. He's the first one eliminated." You know, even before some of the guys get in, I'm like, "Oh man." But this just feeds into his character, man. I wish he had a bigger like. Priest is a good match for Mania. Like I like Damian Priest. I'm a fan. I mean, I think it's going to be a really fun match. They'll tell a really good story with the two of them because they've already been dealing with each other for the last year, and so I think it'll be a lot of fun, and it fits into Drew's character perfectly well. Like he'll just give so many more excuses as to why this happened, even though logically you can't really have many excuses. You just got rolled up and it's your fault. But he'll make up all these fun excuses as to why all this has been happening. And I've loved his promo work the last year going since he's been heel. I think he's done a great job. The promo stuff he did on Friday was great. And so, yeah, I mean, I think for him and Damian, it'll be a good match for them to have. It'll be I think Damian's really lifted his stock in the last year. I think he's done a great job. So I think it's going to be a really fun match. Like I said, do I wish Drew would have won initially? Yeah, I kind of did. I would have loved to have seen Drew, what he would have been, as Cody's guy and some of the stories they could have told there. But no, I think it's going to be a good match, and they're both in good spots right now.
Yeah, I thought Sean brings up a good point that Priest has really developed nicely in the last 6 to 8 months. I was not a fan of Priest's run as world champion, and there were a number of reasons for that. I thought that it was a bit counterproductive to, with a newly established title that only had one champion to that point, to move it to a guy who had more or less been living in the mid card and not really winning many feuds at all at that point. They sort of used the title to elevate Damian Priest rather than the other way around, and I didn't care for that. I thought that when Priest really picked up steam is after he lost the title and officially turned babyface and started really connecting with the crowd. I thought the early work with against Judgment Day was really solid. He had a run of good matches with Finn Balor, and I mean they ran that feud into the ground and just overbooked that thing to the point where it's sort of like John Cena and Randy Orton to me. I don't ever want to see it again. But I thought that for the most part they did a good job with the Finn feud, and so I've come around pretty significantly on Priest. He and McIntyre facing off does feel a little bit to me like they're the odd guys out in the main event scene, so they're sort of forced to match up against each other. But I don't see that necessarily as a bad thing. I
No.
think that like it's not unlike a couple of years ago where we had that triple threat match for the Intercontinental title with Sheamus and Drew and Gunther, where it just sort of felt like they were there because there was nowhere else to put them. Especially Drew, he just kind of like slotted in, but they had one of the best matches of the weekend. And I feel like being in the position that Priest and McIntyre are going to be, which is probably, third or fourth from the top on SmackDown. So, wherever you want to place it overall in the hierarchy of the WrestleMania card, it'll be mid card. I think they're going to be motivated to go out there and have a really good, hard hitting match. And that's exactly what I expect from them.
Thanks a lot, Brandon, and thanks a lot, Sean, for your answer to my question. I'll say a couple things really quick. Is that Brandon? I thought that, and I scroll by and I'll catch it back up here in a second. About somebody said Lego creator Tony said Damian bores him, and I could see that. I thought that they kept Damian pretty strong after he won, senior Money in the Bank. I don't remember him necessarily losing. Like he held him and Finn held the tag team belts. Pretty much up until that WrestleMania, and then when the way they lost them was like in a ladder match, a double ladder match. So not like they got pinned to lose them. So I think they kept Damian pretty strong, and his backstage work with Judgment Day I thought was okay. But that's what we do these things. The last thing I'll bring up, I'll let yourselves go, and hopefully everybody again has a really great night. And hopefully everybody has a really great night. Is that Cena, John Cena, when he put the STF on Punk? I'm not sure if you two mentioned this. Is that
Brian, why?
It was to me it was more secure than we've seen Cena do it in the past. And I think the one time when he did do it with Punk, it was like they showed a lot of light with it. And of course, this is 15 years ago at least. And you always hear editor publisher Wade Keller go back to saying about how Stone Cold Steve Austin told Cena, you need to cinch that on a little bit harder. And yes. Wade seemed to remember that a lot for some reason or another. But I did thought it was on a little bit more snug, like Stone Cold was saying. So I'll let you two gentlemen go again. And
part of the new heel persona.
Brandon and Sean, thanks a lot. Yep, and hope everybody's a really great night. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brian. Thanks for calling. Appreciate it, of course, if you want to be part of the conversation, the line is open for VIP members, and of course everyone in the chat as well. I've been putting up a lot of your comments and reading through them, trying to get to what I can. It is a very, very busy chat. Obviously, a very noteworthy show. So a lot of people chiming in, and we love that. Sean, let's hop into. We'll continue running down the card here. Lots of breaks in between these matches tonight.
Yes.
Show ran relatively standard for a WWE PLE these days, but they were doing a lot of breaks in between, which is good for me, providing coverage for the Torch because I have time to analyze matches in between, but not so great for probably the people who are just watching the show at home and want to get on with the wrestling. Second match, though, is Nia Jax and Candice LeRae taking on Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus, of course, returning home to Toronto. This, her 25th anniversary of being with or around the company. This puts a cap on the feud between Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax as she turns the page to Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania 41. Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus winning this one in just under 12 minutes. No huge surprise there. Sean, not a ton to say about this one overall, but I will say I was pleasantly surprised and very pleased that they gave Stratton the clean pin over Nia Jax. I thought that there was they've got a WWE has a history, especially under Paul Levesque in recent months, of really, really protecting Nia Jax and giving her a significant push. I thought that there was a good chance that even though Stratton needed to be set up strong for WrestleMania, that Stratton and Stratus would get the pin over Candice LeRae. And instead, they went with the clean win for Stratton over Nia. Big fan of that. Sean, anything you want to talk about there, and then the match itself as well?
No, I agree. Good win for Stratton. Tiffany needed that for sure. Yeah, I mean, it was what I thought it was gonna be, and that's a good thing. It's not a negative. I mean, it's a positive. I thought for what they did, it was good. Naya, just her heel mannerisms are great. I think she does a great job as a heel. Like, she's gotten again a lot better. People are down on her. I'm not one of those. Is she the greatest? No. Is she good? Yeah, she's good at what she does. And I thought the match was fine. I thought Trish again just still it looks really good for her age. She does a really nice job. I think when she gets these opportunities, she's been solid in the ring. I thought the few moves she did worked. And Tiffany, again, I don't like, it's a small little thing. I don't love the Tiffy time on her stuff and Toodles on her stuff. I just think, I just don't want her to lean on those things. And I'm really worried that that's what they're going to lean on for this. But the match itself, it's just fine. It's just a good, solid tag team match. I mean, it worked for what the crowd was into it. They were behind them, and that was good for the little bit. I don't know how many people took a bathroom break, because I'm assuming that's what most people probably did during that match, because it just, you knew it was going to happen, and it was fine. But the match was good, and Tiffany needed that win. I'm just nervous going forward for this feud with Charlotte. I really have not been. I thought Tiffany's promo the Friday before was a little better. I mean, it's a low bar for as a face, but the characters have been a mess, and I'm hoping they can get on the right track, because I think the match can be really, really good without both of them having to do moonsaults off the top. Other than, I mean, the prettiest moonsault ever, she's going to do that to win the match. But as far as the outside moonsaults, they both go to a lot of the same tropes at times. But the character work to me has got to be cleaned up, and that's the only thing that makes me nervous about them going forward. But the match tonight was good.
Yeah, I certainly have similar feelings as they turn the page here to Tiffany versus Charlotte. I think that Stratton's been handicapped a little bit by the fact that they really never officially turned her. I mean, her she just sort of turned by cashing in Money in the Bank, which I don't think is a great way to execute a turn. It didn't
Yeah,
matter in it didn't matter in the long run, because the crowd is eating up what she's doing, and it's working. And
yeah,
I'm glad, at the very least. Like, I have a lot of the same complaints that you do about this Charlotte, the notion of this Charlotte feud. I am just really glad that they're going in with what I feel is proper designations. Like, it's very clear that Stratton should be the babyface, and Charlotte should be the heel. Flair coming in, returning as a babyface, felt to me like a huge misstep. And it turned out that they were simply taking a playbook out of Triple H in 2002, coming back from the quad injury. They
yep,
know that a big returning star is going to get cheered coming back in. And then, as soon as it's convenient, you flip them back to their proper role. And I think that was the right move with Charlotte. She has always struggled as a babyface. She's much more natural as a heel. I think
hmm
that there are even quirks and issues with her character as a heel, but it is much stronger as a heel than it is as a babyface. They have work to do with that feud, without question. I think out of the gate, if you're looking at the two women's title programs, Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair is instantly stronger, whether Bianca is a face or heel, just because
absolutely.
those two are incredibly popular characters and both great wrestlers. You know what you're going to get between those two. With Flair and Tiffany, it could go a number of ways. It could be really good, or it could
Yeah,
be a bit of a mess. We really don't. We really don't know. Um, I think that tonight worked in the sense that it closed the chapter on the Nia Jax feud. It gave Tiffany Stratton a big, clean win over a strong opponent, an opponent who's been booked strong and has been really the biggest rival that Tiffany has had thus far. It gave Tiffany the endorsement from Trish Stratus,
yeah,
and it was a
yeah,
good moment for Trish too. I mean, Trish can still go. Like, Trish can still get it done at a level that is believable and acceptable by today's women's wrestling standards. I mean,
absolutely.
she is without question, you know, going to be regarded as one of the best women to ever do it because
Yeah.
of the longevity that she's had and the
Yeah.
fact that she can keep up with the appearance and the in-ring prowess now at her age. It's just really impressive. So yeah, I mean, nothing like huge to say about this match overall as a whole, but I thought it
Yeah.
served its purpose. We turned the page to WrestleMania. Sean, last thing on this one, did you think, were you disappointed in any way that they didn't bring Charlotte in tonight at all to follow up or to push that feud forward? Do you think it was better left just, closing the book on Nia and we'll get to the Charlotte stuff on Friday?
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that at all. I mean, they got plenty of time now till Mania. I mean, there's plenty of time they can have promo war. One thing I did notice at some point, uh, Trish was laying down after getting a move she had gotten, was on the apron, laying on, being beaten down. And Tiffany actually kicked her off the apron, which I was like, I don't know if it was just her trying to get her out of the way without her getting hurt again or something. What did you
I
see that?
saw
What did you
that.
think about that?
Yeah, I caught it on the replay, and what I think it was Trish was in the way of Tiffany leaping up for the prettiest moonsault ever. And so
Okay.
I think she was just
Yeah.
in the heat of the moment, knowing she had to hit the spot. I think she was just trying to get her out safely. But yeah, it looked like she was just kicking her. Yeah. Yeah, I assume that's all it was, but yes, I did pick up on it on the replay. Yeah, it was a funny spot. So after this, we get Michael Cole talking over some locker room shots of McIntyre, Priest, and Seth Rollins. They show Cody Rhodes in the back on his bus with the WWE title. He's got that sort of long 1,000-yard stare. He's thinking over what he's going to do later in the night, and then we toss to a full-blown propaganda video for The Rock. Just straight up, how great is this guy?
Man, was it over
Propaganda,
the top. Holy crap.
just full on state-run media type, look how great this board member is. Which I didn't really know what to make of it. I thought that they were tossing to this because it was the lead-in for the Rock and Cody segment.
Right. Me too.
And then it was just nope, this is a promo for The Rock. Sean, what did you think?
Man, it was, oh gosh, it was overloaded. I mean, it was just over the top. It was, look at me, I am the most popular person in the world. Look at me, I'm this, I'm that. I mean,
did you know that he was the most famous, most popular person in the world?
Well, yeah, because I mean, I've been around, I've seen stuff. I mean, yeah, you could get a glimpse. He is one of the most famous people, but no, it was just over the top. But then when you see what happened, tonight, it was it was kind of fun they fit that in there. But it was I'm like, oh my gosh, Rock, we know who you are, we know how charismatic you are and how famous you are, and it was in the moment it was oh my gosh, we don't need to see all this. But it was fun for what it was. I mean, leading into what they did tonight, I thought it was fine, but it was a little fun.
If they had been more forward with, or really, if The Rock had been more forward with presenting himself as a heel full time, because I talked about this with Frank. I talked about this with Frank on Pro Wrestling Then and Now. The Rock turned how many times in the course of that promo with Cody Rhodes?
I didn't
4 or
love
5
that
times.
at all. Yeah.
No, I didn't either. And if Rock had been more wholly focused on getting that final boss, cementing that final boss character as a full-blown, full-time heel, not, hey, look at me, the final boss is a bad guy and you boo him. The Rock is somewhere in between. He insults you, but you like him. And Dwayne Johnson is the guy everybody loves. Cheer me. Thank you so much for coming to this show. If those characters were, properly merged and we weren't getting 3 different Rock personalities in that promo, I would have thought that this promo tonight would have been a great opportunity for somebody like Michael Cole to push back and say, come on, like, do we need this level of propaganda? Like, we know The Rock is great, but like, come on, we've got a show to put on, we've got matches to have, and we've got to be watching this video.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were able to go there because The Rock's character has been so muddy up to this
Right.
point.
Yeah.
But I
And-
think go ahead.
Well, I was saying, and that's why I didn't love him being at the first Netflix show. Made sense, okay? Like, it was cool him being there, but then you just put fire on everything by you love Cody and you're all close now, and we didn't need that. I mean, I just be you did the final boss. Lean into that full bore if you're going to do that. Like, hopefully Cena does now that, like, lean into it. Don't go, like you said, the muddy. It just muddies everything up, and it's not good.
I hope that going forward, now that we are supposed to fully buy into The Rock as this big bad boss character, the ultimate heel authority figure, that there is some of that pushback from commentary, specifically Michael Cole, where he just says the stuff that The Rock is doing is over the top. Of course, we know The Rock is great. He's The Rock, but like, do we need this stuff? I hope that they visit that a little bit, because it does feel like The Rock is committing this sort of like hostile takeover of the company. He is sort of pushing the creative vision of Paul Levesque, like pushing the creative vision of Paul Levesque aside for his own financial gain, for his representation, for his spot on the board, on the TKO board. They're doing a lot of things that are leading us into this scenario where The Rock is, again, like I said, sort of forcing a takeover of the company in one way or another. And you do wonder if at some point we get, CW brings this up in the chat, do we get some sort of interaction between The Rock and Triple H? We got it last year. There was obvious heat there between the two on screen, where Triple H clearly had a vision and The Rock was pushing back on it. And it worked both from the perspective of, hey, this is going on outside of the ring, from in real life, and it's also what we're presenting in the ring, and it makes sense within the context of kayfabe. So there's a lot that they can do there. I mean, I thought that the promo was funny because it was very much on the nose. But yeah, I'm interested to see if going forward we get more of this stuff, if there is some pushback to the amount of over the top stuff that we're getting from The Rock.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on now to match number 3, an unsanctioned match with Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens. This one quite interesting, because I back a few weeks ago when I was on the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post show, when they booked this match officially, Wade and I kind of wondered where this was headed for WrestleMania. Would they do a straight match here where we get a finish? Would it just sort of be a huge beatdown? Would it be somewhere in between? Because ultimately, the question is, where are we going for WrestleMania? You have this possibility of Sami Zayn facing Kevin Owens again. You also have Randy Orton perhaps waiting in the wings. So there's a number of avenues, a number of ways they can tell this story. And then if it's Randy Orton, what are we doing with Sami Zayn at that point? So we'll get to all of that here, because a lot of those things come to fruition in the latter portion of this match. But match itself, They brawl all over the lower bowl and a lower area of the Rogers Center. They fight back to ringside. There are multiple major table spots, tons of chairs involved. There is a barbed wire wrap steel chair that is used on both Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Multiple near falls, multiple ref bumps. There is basically all the bells and whistles in this match. They pull out all the stops, everything except blood. This one ends when Kevin Owens is able to hit or catch Sami Zayn with a pop-up power bomb when Sami is attempting a haluva kick in the corner. It gives Zayn some kind of stinger in his neck. He rolls to the outside. Owens uses this as an opportunity to roll to the outside and go off on Zayn. First, giving him a pop-up powerbomb on the edge of the ring, harkening back to their NXT feud. When officials spill from the back to try to break this whole thing down, Owens loses it, hits the powerbomb again, rolls Zayn in the ring, finally pins him for a 3 count, and Owens just wins this match straight up. There's some celebration from, or not celebration, but just sort of like relief from Owens after this thing ends. More officials spill from the back. They put Sami in a neck brace. We think that it's over. Kevin is being led out of the ringside area by security. He turns around, takes out security, runs back, pulls Sami out of the ring, and is looking as though he is going to give Sami a package pile driver on the exposed concrete of the floor of the Rogers Center when Randy Orton's music hits. Kevin lets Sami go, gets back in the ring, waits for Orton to come down to the ring. The two brawl for a bit. Orton hits an RKO, sizes Kevin up for a punt, and security steps in and separates them, and everybody goes their separate ways. So Owens, your winner here in just under 28 minutes. I thought that this was really compelling. A fairly prototypical WWE brawl, maybe like with the heat turned up 1 or 2 notches. They really got into it the final 8 to 10 minutes, started going for more dangerous spots. The barbed wire stuff worked really well for what they were trying to do there. I thought that calling back to the NXT feud with the power bomb on the apron just felt like a clear direction they go. I mean, when they announced this match, I thought like they're going to do the power bomb on the apron. They have to. It just sort of makes sense. Well, Sean, first, go ahead and talk about the match itself. What did you think of the match? And then we'll kind of talk about the stuff with Randy Orton that happened after and the implications going forward for WrestleMania.
Yeah, okay. So the few things I'll say the few things I didn't like first. I know somebody brought it up, and I immediately, when the lighting went dim, that was weird to me. I didn't care for that. I mean, you could do an unsanctioned match with the lights on like they are. I mean, you don't have to dim the lights for that. That was, I don't know if that was just me or that just seemed kind of weird, but it didn't take me out of it. I mean, I was still invested in the match, but it was like, I don't know why they needed to do that. The brawling
I did
itself,
really like I agree on the part of the lights, but what I did really like was them covering up the turnbuckles. That was just a small aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
But I thought that the idea of saying this isn't sanctioned by WWE, like we don't want our logo there, I thought that was good. And then in addition, they've been having those LED advertisements on the surrounding boards around the ring for most matches. And not having it here, I thought was a nice touch and made a lot of sense, because why would they have a sponsor for an unsanctioned match? So it was a small thing, but like good attention to detail. Sorry, go ahead, continue.
No, and going back to what you're saying about that, then it was cool that the ref didn't just had a black shirt on and black gloves.
Yeah.
But then it was funny because when he got knocked out, and then you have to bring a WWE official in because like they're not all going to wear black shirts. I mean, they're all doing other WWE stuff, so they're going to have. It was just funny they had WWE shirts on. It just kind of cracked me up. And Charles came out and then he got beat up, and then the other ref came in. That was interesting. And but as far as the match itself, really, really well done. I mean, I like this all around. I mean, now one thing I will say, call me gory. I don't need to have blood in my match every match, obviously. But this match, I think, should have some blood in it. I mean, it's an unsanctioned match. I mean, they're going to big time lengths to try to hurt each other really, really badly. And especially with the KO, his face hitting the barbed wire, like there should be some kind of blood there to just something. I mean, their bodies were, you could tell they were battered up a little bit. I mean, they took some really hard falls during the match, but I just think if you're going to have blood, this is a perfect time to have something like that. And I think WWE goes away from that a little too much. So I think it doesn't take me out of it because I see the punishment they're putting themselves through. But I just think you have to have a little blood in certain aspects of that. But the match itself was really well done. They did the safe one with Sammy going through the two tables. I thought that was a well done spot. Um, Everything, the barbed wire, like you said, they did a really nice job with that. It was just a really physical, hard hitting. These guys were just serious the entire time, like it should have been. I love it, Sammy. Just the basic Sammy coming out. He's serious the entire time. He's not playing to the fans. He's not doing it. He's serious. He wants to. He wants.
He looked nervous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He knew it was going to go down. He knew some bad stuff was going to happen. It was what it came down to, but it just the emotion kind of led you into the match, which was just overall. I thought they played it well. And then, it's just really well done. I mean, KO needed the win because I think it didn't hurt Sammy. It was just a back and forth great match. And I think KO kind of needed a win to kind of not solidify himself, but I think if they're going to go to the next point in the feud, wherever that is, like which we'll talk about, I thought the win for KO made sense here.
Yeah, I did too, and Owens has come out on the losing end of so many feuds that I think it was big to give him a win here, and I think it also makes sense that at the end of the day, even though Sami Zayn was willing to go to great lengths to hurt his best friend, it it felt as though Owens was willing to go a step farther. And
Yeah,
as the
yeah,
heel, I think that is the message that you want to send. I am totally with you on the notion of them needing blood in this one. I had it in my report for PW Torch actually that it felt like the one thing that was missing here, and it bugged me a little bit more than it normally would, only because WWE has been so good lately about selectively using blood.
hmm
And so if this had been, 3 or 4 years ago when blood was just a hard no, they just were not doing blood, then I wouldn't have thought much of it. I would have said, well, this would have benefited from blood, but oh well, WWE doesn't do that. But now they do. And I'm thinking, hindsight being 2020, they didn't do it here because they knew they had it coming later with Cody. And
hmm
I get it, but I also don't think that having it in two moments would have lessened the impact of Cody bleeding later. I think that
right.
there are rare
Yeah,
situations where you just happen to have two instances on one show
yeah,
where the scenario calls for a little bit of extra violence. And tonight was one of those scenarios. So, yeah, I would have definitely voted for some blood in this one. Probably, as some are mentioning in the chat, the eye spot for Kevin. Because he took that drop toe hold into the barbed wire chair, and you saw him kind of kicking and screaming on the mat, screaming about his eye. And his eye did look like a little red, and it might honestly have just been from him, like rubbing it quite a bit. it
hmm
it looked worse for wear. It didn't look like he came up completely unscathed. And I liked that, if nothing else, he sold it well. Like he was like, when you saw when he rolled in the ring to face Orton when he came out, he was sort of doing like the blink thing, like he
yeah.
almost couldn't see
He
out of the
was.
eye.
Yeah,
So that was good. I mean, Owens is a pro. He's always going to nail
he's
that
so
kind of
good.
stuff. Like, so yeah. I mean, the fact that we couldn't have blood, at least Owens was great at selling the moment. But let's pivot a little bit here to, where does this leave us for WrestleMania, because on one hand, tonight felt like it wasn't conclusive for Owens and Zayn. I mean, you would think that Sammy would be out for a certain level of revenge, but the clear path with Orton returning, not getting the punt in on Orton, getting
Yeah.
separated before it could get to that level. The clear path here is Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens. So is that what you expect? Would you rather see another match with Sammy? Would you want to see a triple threat? How do you parse this out?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the few, and of course, I don't know where they're going with some of the other main guys, and that's what's kind of intriguing to me. Like with Orton coming back, obviously he's obviously got the feud with Owens, like right there. I mean, Owens attacked him; he wants revenge on. But this is where, in the not really the mid card, but the upper mid card, if I'm going to do a triple threat, this is where it makes sense because you have both guys, Sammy and Orton, that both want revenge on Kevin Owens. And so you could tell the story with Sammy and Kevin. You know, obviously they're going to, Sammy will probably miss a few more weeks, but you know, going into Mania, be like, all right, Sammy wants to get back at him, you know, all this kind of stuff. They'll tell that story, and then KO, obviously, with Orton, can still do the same thing. Because I don't want to leave, I just don't want to leave Sammy out because I don't know where Sammy goes if he's not involved in that match. And I just think it fits because they both have the issue with him. This is where if I'm going to do a triple threat, this is where I would do it. And I think it'd be a heck of a match because you can weave the story in. But I mean, most people would say just do Orton Owens, which again I'm fine with. I just don't know what they do for Sammy in the meantime if they don't if it's just the two of them. So I'm curious where they go.
Yeah, Kyle bringing up in the chat, he suspected another KO and Sammy match, but it seems like they wrote Sammy off, and I agree. I think we're going to get a little bit of time with Sammy off, but I do suspect that he'll be back before WrestleMania. I I get the interest in seeing a triple threat there. My question first, generally, I like to reserve triple threats for title matches because it seems like, what other reason do we have for
Interesting.
having
Okay.
a triple threat unless there's just a really big heated issue between three guys? I, I I'd have a hard time getting to a point where the issue between Sammy and Randy could get to a point where it feels like they should both be in a match against Kevin because Kevin as
Yeah.
the heel is going to say, "Well, why would I have to face both of these guys? They're going to team up on me. Like they both have it out for me. Why how is that fair?" And from the other perspective, Sammy and Randy are probably thinking, "Well, yeah, I mean, we both hate this guy. We're going to work together against him." Even if there's an issue between
Yeah.
Sammy and Randy, it's nowhere near as prevalent as the
That's
one
true.
between each of them. There's also the other the other side of this where as Brian just mentioned in the chat, others have as well. There's the known issue between CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and Roman Reigns is waiting in the
Mhm.
wings. So
Mhm.
that's another triple threat match potentially on the table,
Mhm.
another non-title triple threat match potentially on the table. So it feels to me more like we're headed for Orton and KO one-on-one, but that does create this situation, like you said, Sean, where Sammy, who is such an important character,
So good.
is left out. And I've seen people mention the notion of Karrion Cross, and
No,
they can
no.
heat up that angle, but man, that just feels like a Raw match to me.
Yeah, that's beneath
Um,
Sammy. That's beneath Sammy for Mania. I mean, as good as Cross has kind of been backstage lately, he's gotten a little more interesting as a, just a mid-card character, but it's just not worth Sammy's time for a Mania match. It's just beneath somebody like with his talent. I mean, to me, it's not good enough.
Yeah, that is certainly my perspective on it. I don't think they can heat cross up to a level where that feels like the play. Standard deviation mentioning who's against Logan Paul, and that is worth bringing up. I had sort of when I was thinking of uh if in my head when I'm going through the possibilities here, if I had CM Punk winning the chamber, for example, that to me left John Cena as a pretty clear, apparent opponent for Logan Paul. Same way, if you reverse the situation, I thought that there was a good chance that we would see CM Punk and Logan Paul. But after the way the chamber finished tonight, Seth and CM Punk seem too intertwined for them to go in any other direction. So if Rollins hadn't been the guy to cost Punk the match tonight,
Yeah.
I would say, we're getting Punk and Paul. But
Right.
now
Right.
that we saw what we saw, I don't think that's the direction. That would be completely out of left field at this point. Not to mention Punk pin Paul clean. It just seems destined that this is Punk and Rollins. Whether it involves Roman or not, I don't know. But
Yeah.
Punk and Rollins will be opposite each other. So that is a question. Where does that leave Logan Paul? Is it AJ Styles? AJ Styles has got something going on with Braun Breaker. That to me
Yep.
makes a little bit more sense. So is it Sami Zayn and Logan Paul? I mean, that's a story. You've got 8 weeks. You've got
You do.
8 weeks to tell a brand new story. That seems to me worthy of Sammy's time at
Yeah.
WrestleMania.
Yeah. I
But
agree.
how do you pivot him away from Kevin Owens?
That's the problem. That's what I'm saying. I get what you were bringing up about, Sammy and Randy really don't have any issue with each other. So it's just
Right.
weird of, okay, they're just going after KO. And that's a fair thought of it. I just, like I said, you just said, I mean, you do have plenty of time to build to a Sammy Logan. It would just come totally out of left field. They've never even been
Right.
with each other at all, really. So you'd have to just kind of, I don't like throwing stuff out of left field. I like to kind of build up to something even before that, to where you kind of, they've met before, they've seen face to face something where they've kind of interacted a little bit, where these guys just haven't. And so that's where I'm just,
Yeah.
and Roman, again, I have no problem with Roman being part time. I've said that over and over and over, but he's been gone a long time. This is Mania season. I know they're playing the Rollins stomp at the Rumble, and I get all that, but it's just crazy we have not seen him at all since then. It just feels like it's been a long time, and I know he'll be back here soon, but I'm really curious. Like, I mean, we'll talk about here soon, but like where he's going to go, because I just, yeah, triple threat just seems easy. But I want to tell something with Roman, kind of build on something with him, and I just feel like they just haven't done anything with it. They're just building on what, I guess, where they're going from the Rumble. But it's been over a month, and we haven't seen him one time or anything about him like whatsoever. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it does make you wonder because Roman has the built-in story there with Seth Rollins. Obviously, there's I mean Rollins in terms of kayfabe, Rollins is the reason Roman Reigns is not around right now. I mean the official the official report out of WWE in terms of what they present on television is that Seth Rollins injured Roman Reigns. So obviously he shows up. It makes plenty of sense for him to be right at Seth's throat. But you've got the Punk thing. So I mean, is that just a regular old triple threat? I don't know. I'm not sure. There's also there's also there's also the stuff with the bloodline or the new bloodline.
Yeah.
There's the chance that Roman faces Jacob Fatu if they're not going the direction of Fatu against Solo quite yet. I mean, they just kind of got them back together or on the same page again. Fatu, they've got 8 weeks to tell a story of dissension there or of Solo putting up Fatu as his, quote unquote champion to face Roman Reigns. they can do that too. There's a number of different directions for most of these guys. It's just that each one kind of leaves someone out of the equation, so it's kind of hard to arrive at a solid prediction one way or the other. But all right, so Orton KO, Sammy, covered that, covered, where we think it's headed for, or where it could be headed for WrestleMania. After this, after another extended break, we get Logan Paul and CM Punk shown backstage. The chamber is then lowered into place, and we get the big video package for our main event match. So Alicia Taylor explains the rules. Winner is going to face Cody Rhodes for the undisputed title at WrestleMania 41. And then we have Logan Paul, Damian Priest, CM Punk, and John Cena being locked in respective pods, allowing the match to begin with Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins. So, of course, we have already talked about the post-match angle in detail. I'm sure we will bring up some things again. But covering this match itself, John Cena is, of course, your winner in 32 minutes and 30 seconds. Just going over quickly how this went down. Final three comes down to John Cena and CM Punk. There is a whole bunch of back and forth action between Cena and Punk with Rollins down on the outside. They tease several finishes, several near falls, and Punk kicks out of basically all of Cena's offense, including slipping free from the STF. So it winds up that Seth returns to the ring, and he is kind of antagonistic toward both John and CM Punk. Punk and Cena working together, double teaming Seth at one point. The lead into the finish here comes when Punk hits the GTS on Rollins. Rollins bounces right into the waiting arms of John Cena, who gives him an attitude adjustment. Cena falls to the mat. Punk covers Rollins and eliminates him. That occurs just a couple of minutes before the actual finish, which sees Cena and Punk go for a handshake. Punk pulls him in, gives him the GTS. Cena recovers quickly, hits the attitude adjustment. These two are just spamming finishers back and forth. This leads to the true finish, which is Cena grabbing onto Punk's ankle as he drags himself toward the ropes to avoid getting caught in the STF again. But what Punk doesn't know is that Seth Rollins is waiting there on the outside. He gives Punk a stomp. Punk sells it incredibly well, lands basically looking like he's dead against the bottom rope there. Cena sees this happen, and he gets this wild, crazed look on his face, and he knows that he's got this in the bag. He drags Punk back to the center of the ring, and he locks on the STF. They get a good shot of Seth Rollins looking maniacal and happy that he knows he's just cost Punk his WrestleMania main event. Cena, there's a lot going on here in these final seconds. Cena is saying, I'm sorry, repeatedly to Punk, knowing that he's going to steal this match from him. And meanwhile, Seth is on the outside screaming, die, at CM Punk.
That was great.
So Punk passes out to the STF, and Cena wins in 32-30. Sean, first thing, I know we've talked about in the past, and I've talked about with others, the overuse of the pass out finish. What did you think of it here?
Gosh, I don't know. It was, the argument with that is that it's, would you rather pass out or would you rather tap out? Oh, tapping out's worse because you're like giving up, and if you're passing out, you're not really giving up. But like Brian was being very favorable to that SCF still looked really bad. I mean, he literally has his arm on him and he's not even pulling back or anything. And Punk just trying to sell the heck out of it. And he did. He sold the heck out of it. But gosh, it just, I mean, it'll be better he's a heel now and it won't be as bad, I guess, maybe in that sense. But oh, Lord have mercy. That part stunk. But it was probably okay here, but I would rather just I don't know. I wish he would just. I'd rather him almost just pin him with the AA and just be done with it. I just that move looks so bad when Cena does it anyway. So I'm always kind of turned off just by him doing the move and then somebody having to pass out to it just seems, especially Punk, I guess, even just feels like ugh, you know. But so passing out was fine in that scenario. If you're gonna pass out or tap out, I'd still rather you pass out. But I just the finish didn't really do it for me. Like the match itself was I mean it was good. I don't think it was great. I thought it was good. I thought it was well worked overall. I thought everybody, did their stuff well. I thought Priest still had a good did some cool stuff. Logan off the pod was a cool spot. They didn't go overboard. They didn't try to do any kind of crazy spots. Other than that was like the craziest I think they did really for the most part. Yeah, I just thought it was a good match. Like I said, Drew going out first, kind of, it was like, oh, but then, him and Damian are going off their separate ways, so that'll be fine. Logan, like I said, I thought overall did a good job. And Seth just, yeah, the die, the die at the end, I thought was classic. Seth's doing his character work is a lot better lately. Man, trying to be the best dressed guy in the like, stop, man. Like he just goes so over the top with the wardrobes and the way he dresses. But I thought his character work has been really well done in the last couple weeks, like building up to this match. I thought he did a really good job in this match. I thought it was pretty well done overall.
Yeah, I think that the pass out here worked well enough. I mean, I would have preferred in this instance, partially because this this was so focused on this setup between Punk and Rollins and where they're headed for WrestleMania, and with Seth just taking it so seriously and screaming "die" and everything. I wouldn't have minded if especially with how good the stomp looked, if he just knocked Punk out and Cena applied the STF and Punk was just already out. There was no fighting it. He was just gone. Like the lights were just off because Rollins knocked him out with the stomp. But I mean
Yeah.
that's just like a small thing. I thought that this was well worked overall. Punk,
Yeah.
there's if there's one thing that I would say definitively about CM Punk and his run, this second run in
Hmm.
WWE, it's that if he's not having the time of his life, he is selling it better than just about anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah, I would agree.
I I don't know if he is a changed man. I have no idea. I mean, as we have heard, we've heard the rumblings and the reports from people that have been passed through to Wade and to others that he is a model citizen backstage, that he gets along with everybody. Everything has been
Mhm.
great. He's a pleasure and a joy to work with. Obviously, these are not things that you are typically hearing about CM Punk, but it's all we've heard since he's returned at Survivor Series in Chicago in 2023. And it feels like that on screen. It seems like he is having a great time,
Yeah.
enjoying the work that he's doing, enjoying the wrestling, enjoying the people that he's working with. I don't I don't know. I mean, maybe there's something brewing. Maybe it'll happen at the end of his deal. I don't know. But right now, it's been fun, and he
Yeah.
was really good in this match. I thought that his commentary from inside the pod was really great. The way that he was, constantly just going off on Seth and on Drew and on Priest and jawing from across the pod with Logan Paul.
Right.
He was just having a great time, and it added to the stakes and to the drama of the match, and I thought it worked really well. All six guys here in this one had spots throughout. You could say Damian Priest probably the least of the bunch, but
Mhm.
that was fine because they set up the feud with McIntyre really well, like we talked about earlier on in the night. Like this was booked really well. Obviously, they knew that they had the huge angle in their back pocket um, to close out the show, but it didn't take away the momentum and the interest from the crowd. The
Mhm.
crowd, even knowing that they still had The Rock and Cody Rhodes to come, they were genuinely invested in what was going on here from start to finish, and really cared about who was going to be the one to come out to face Cody. So Sean, anything else you want to add about this match itself before we bring on another VIP caller and wrap things up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, other like you said about CM Punk, I just kind of echo what you've been saying about him because, like I said, when he got, the stuff in AEW was just a mess on so many levels. But then, partly like Wade said, and I agree with him, it's a lot on AEW, but it's a lot on Punk too. I mean, it's both sides, mingle and that kind of thing. You can't just give one person all the blame. It's a lot of stuff to go around. But then, since he's come to WWE, like you said, I mean, he's just been, now that we've seen him in the ring, like the ring rust is gone. He's having good matches. He's been involved in a lot of good stuff, and his promo work's been really well done. I like what he's doing as a face. I mean, I think ultimately, turning heel in the future is still, and I'm curious where the favor is. I mean, we'll find out about that here more as we go along, going toward Mania. But yeah, it's just been really fun what he's done. I've really enjoyed him, and I was always a fan. But yeah, since he just feels invested right now in the product, and just like wanting to do the best he can to be the best character he can be right now, and it's been a lot of fun watching him.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's before we wrap up here, I want to bring on one more VIP caller to the show, get some kind of closing thoughts, and we'll wrap things up with, I'm sure, a little bit more discussion about where everything shakes down from here. But first, let me go ahead and please help me with the pronunciation of your name so I don't get it messed up.
It's Hidden. Hi, Brandon. And
Okay,
hi, Sean.
Hidden. Okay, perfect.
Hey, Hidden.
I thought it was, but I didn't want. I wanted to be sure.
Yeah, totally. Hey guys, I was just at the show actually, and I just got I sent Wade
awesome.
the live correspondence email fairly late, so then he just got a hold of me like 20 minutes ago saying, "Hey, can you still call in?" And I was like, "Yeah." I just noticed.
Oh, cool.
You were on.
Well,
yeah.
awesome. That's a perfect way to wrap things up then. Give me your overall thoughts. Obviously we can touch on the big Cena heel turn, but talk about the crowd. Talk about anything you want to bring up in particular.
Yeah, totally. It was an amazing show from a live perspective. It's easy. I read some of Wade's report as well, and some general online criticism of the John Cena heel turn, and I guess it's sort of easier to see that when you're kind of behind the screen, but just being there live for it, I think was history making. I never thought I'd see the day where I'd see John Cena turn heel. 2011, I remember just listening to the vibrations of those boos in Chicago for Money in the Bank when John Cena made his entrance, and seeing the overwhelming positive reaction for him now. I was at Money in the Bank last year. That was my first ever wrestling show. This is my second ever wrestling show I've ever been to, and both were fairly newsworthy. We had a Cena surprise appearance then, and Jacob Fatu's first matches in WWE as well. Now a Cena match and a Cena heel turn. It was something. I can say tickets were pretty expensive, but being there for that, I think everyone had. I was on the streetcar actually with a bunch of those wrestling fans. Everyone was reeling from it. Everyone was talking about it. There was a lot of families there. The kids, they're in on it. Like, this was a more family friendly audience than what I saw at Money in the Bank in Scotia Bank Arena last year, for sure. A lot more kids there, a lot more families. But it's millennial dads, right? It's dads wearing CM Punk shirts who grew up with watching the Punk Cena rivalries and stuff. So it's sort of that new generational vibe. They're okay with their kids listening to like F-bombs being dropped up from people up on the top. And also for the politically inclined over there, the U.S. national anthem got booed resoundingly, and a lot of people didn't even stand up for it during the pre-show.
Yeah, we did mention that, and also McAfee brought it up a few times on commentary too, which I said at the top of the show I was a little surprised that he didn't get the kibosh put on that from the powers that be backstage, only because WWE has been so adamant about being very much removed from the political landscape in recent last couple of years or so. So yeah, that was certainly audible on the broadcast, and McAfee was sure to bring it up. Talk a little bit about the experience being inside a larger stadium. I've been to some stadium shows, some different setups. Typically, the ones that I have been to have been the more traditional WrestleMania types where you have the big stage. This is a much different setup where they're sort of utilizing the baseball diamond shape of these stadiums with the curved entranceway. So, like, where were you seated, and what was the experience like as far as seeing it?
Absolutely. So I was seated in section 238, which is just kind of opposite where traditionally the Titantron ought to be, but obviously the big screen for us was like there's one just above the ring, and then there's one off to my left over here, and the wrestlers are sort of coming down this way. I had to kind of look this way to look at the ring. So there was a lot of empty space on my left side, just a bunch of, like, during the Owens Zayn match, people are like, hey, take him over, there's a bunch of empty space there, you can do whatever stunts you want, like in that open area. And a bunch of, they had like merch stands and everything like on the ground over there, and then all the front row seats were like, there was no barricading. It was literally just seats. It was what you saw in Owens Empty Arena promo. So it was bizarre to see that. They darkened virtually everything during all the matches. Especially, it was more pronounced during the Zayn Owens match. They would darken everything except just a light just on the wrestler. So it was like, I'm trying to take a photo, but like my camera's not good enough, and the videos are not coming out right. I will say watching Elimination Chamber matches are probably marginally better on TV because the frames of those are just so thick that it's like you can barely, at least from my angle, see the wrestlers. Like I'm looking at Cena in the pod, and it's like, okay, the action's going on there. I'm like half seeing the wrestlers move around. So if you're gonna go to a live show, I mean, this show, I don't regret going to this show, but if you're enticed by the Elimination Chamber concept, then it's not the best, I would say, live experience wise, unless you have really good like front row ish or front deck kind of seats. But yeah, the stadium show, I will say, it didn't feel too different from arena just because of the way it was, generally set up. The roof was overhead. It didn't feel much larger than what the arena was. A large part of the stadium just wasn't being used. That had been just, that was essentially just a big screen and a lot of just merch stands right behind where people or VIPs or whatever were just roaming around there. So kind of bizarre to see that, but eventually your eyes just you just take your eyes off of it. You don't even notice them setting the pre-show panel up. So
yeah, they've employed that strategy frequently with these stadium shows that are not WrestleManias, where they'll go in these larger buildings, but they won't attempt to utilize the full capacity, which I think works in a number of ways. One, they don't have the expectation of selling 60,000 tickets for all of these shows when they may not be able to. And two, visually, the way that they set up their cameras, they still get the look of a crowded stadium. So it's kind of best of both worlds for them in that way. Let's address the major angle here. I mean, we at this point, it's kind of the perfect time for you to be on, because we've talked about the whole show, top to bottom at this point, and the closing angle, so we can kind of get your overarching feeling on everything. Talk about the reaction from the crowd, the just what it felt like to be there in that moment when we get the John Cena heel turn.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with how everything kind of started. John Cena was easily the most over person on the entire show, I will say. Wow. Logan Paul got the most vociferous boos. Cena got the most vociferous cheers. And again, it is from young men. The young male demo, at least in Canada, was really into Cena. I don't know about now, but so they were rooting for him in the match. There were the Cena Punk confrontations during the chamber match were pretty epic. There was huge pops for both. There was a stare off, and then there was a melee in between in the match, and then there was like their final kind of wrestling at the end of the match. People like Punk, people like Cena, but if they had to choose, most people chose Cena, and they really wanted him to win. And they didn't actually care that he won, kind of taking advantage of a prone Punk with Seth Rollins pulling him in. So we thought, Sean, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead. No,
Okay.
Go ahead. My facial reaction is like always this. So I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, no, it's so yeah, they didn't care. There's like, oh yeah, he won. Oh shit, yeah, this is good. Yeah, we got to be a part of this. And then we were expecting like there to be another break because the match had gone on for a little bit, but no break. Cody just comes right out and everyone's excited. And then they're like, okay, come on, let's get Rock out. And now people, I think they don't like The Rock, but they like to show excitement when his music hits. It's like, but then once his music fades, it's like, okay, yeah, we don't like this guy. So anyone that says, oh, Rock was universally cheered or universally booed, it's just kind of I'm here to see a star thing. Like, when else am I, for example, going to see The Rock? I don't know, So I was excited for it. And it built really nicely. I mean, people were predicting. Wrestling fans like to sound smart. They like to sound like they're Nostradamuses essentially. So they're like, okay, Cody's like, I've already given my soul away. And then like, oh, he's gonna say he's given away to the fans. And he's like, yeah, I gave my soul away to the fans. And then they're kind of predicting everything, but they don't notice until much later that Rock made that gesture towards Cena. And then they're like, what? And all of a sudden the low blow happens and everyone's like, oh my God, I never thought I'd live to see this day. There's so many comments surrounding that. The vibe afterward of people just kind of sitting there on their seats, just kind of talking to each other. A few people did kind of filter on out, but people were sitting there and actually just processing what they'd seen. There was a couple that I was actually close to on the street car who was like, okay, I have to just go back and look at this live. And they were like opening Facebook, opening YouTube, or wherever. They're like, oh, look at his face. Like, oh, can you see his face? Like, this is just perfect storytelling. Like, look at the blood on Cody's face. So they really, like, people who were there live are actually going to go out of their way to watch this back again. And I mean, if this was a pay-per-view format, there would be extra buys coming out of this just based on that reaction. I mean, it was good. And even without that angle, I mean, it was a pretty special show. I think people really got into the Zayn Owens match. It was a spectacle for them, as far as AEW has sort of pushed the boundaries on violence and stuff. So it's like, okay, unsanctioned match. Is this going to be Shawn Michaels versus Triple H from 2002 levels of violence? Maybe not, right? But it was Zayn Owens. People were into it. It's not like, we talked about the politics thing. That Logan Paul come out with an American flag. So they're leaning into that. But Owens managed to, I think, also turn the fans on himself. And the Randy Orton entrance got a huge pop, but really nothing like what happened with Cena. I mean, the I Was There shirts, they'd been promoting these. I don't know if you guys got the same ads, but they're like, okay, these limited edition shirts, they're going to go on sale like in the stadium, like after the shows. And they're like, once they're gone, I believe. And they might still have them on sale. And they're like, make sure you get them. And now I can see why. It's like they're not just bluffing. It's a show that you can kind of be proud of to say I was there. And yeah, a lot of people were. The guy was saying, yeah, I've been at WrestleManias. I've never quite felt this way after leaving a wrestling show. I'm still like, shaking with excitement almost.
Yeah, I mean, just take the closing angle out of it, and just after Cena wins. If they go home right there, I had this as a thumbs up show. I mean, not like overwhelmingly, but certainly a thumbs up show. It did exactly what it set out to accomplish. It set up a number of stories for WrestleMania. It gave us our main events. It cleared some things up about some of the undercard. You had that really good match with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn with some great storytelling, a big return from Randy Orton, the big return for Jade Cargill. So yeah, just up and down, you have a lot of stuff here that this is an easy thumbs up show. And then you have this angle that is, I mean, we started out the night with people in the chat saying that this is second only to or comparable to Hulk Hogan joining the NWO. And people are going to talk about this in that vein, regardless of how it shakes out. And Hitton, you mentioned, when you first got on that you had seen some chatter of complaints about how it was executed and stuff that may or may not have made sense. And we addressed a lot of that at the top of the show and got into it pretty heavily. And looking back at it now, there are certain things that I do hope that they explain and get a little bit more clarity on. But I can say without question that in the moment when that turn happened, man, I wasn't thinking about any of that. It wasn't until the show had gone off the air and I was getting ready to jump on here with Sean that I started thinking like, okay, but like, how did The Rock know Cena was going to win? Like, what if Cena didn't win? Those kinds of things. So there's stuff you think about in hindsight, but yeah, I mean, in the moment, this was shocking. I mean, there is not a lot in pro wrestling that gets me to, have any sort of audible reaction. I mean, like, I'm sitting away watching the show, typing my report for PW Torch, and there isn't usually much coming out of me emotion-wise. And when he hit the low blow, I was like, oh my God. I mean, there was no other way to react in the moment. I mean, it was genuinely shocking. Sean, anything that you want to ask Hitton about here while we have him about the live experience?
Well, first I'll say, Hitton, I know it's been a long time since you've been on. I know you used to, call in with Wade a lot, and you always had good viewpoints on things, man. So I miss you being on. I hope you get to be on more during the coming weeks and months. But first, real quick about Cena, was it pretty obvious to you guys when Cena was still in the ring when The Rock came out that, okay, something might be up, like something's happening? Like, why would Cena just be sitting there the whole time while he already knows he's getting his match with Cody? Why does he need to be in there with The Rock? Did they think, oh, he's worried that Rock might do something when Cody says no, or is that what they were thinking? Like, what do they think about that?
To be honest, if they were thinking that, they weren't thinking that out loud. And I wasn't. I was thinking something will happen, but it would be more in the vein of, Cena aligns with Cody. I think what people were expecting more was Roman Reigns coming out and realigning with The Rock, which sort of, and there's a guy like nearby. He's like, "Oh, look, the Roman's coming out. They're setting it up already." I'm like, "What are they setting up?" Like, I'm not entirely. I didn't really prod him, right? But no, it was more Roman. I think like in the back of their head, they're like, "Oh, well, based on how Cena did his press conference after the Rumble, yeah, I'm gonna get in. It's gonna be best for business for me to." For me to go to WrestleMania, become champion, you know what I mean? And people are like, oh, well, they might turn him heel, but now we've been saying this for year after year after year. They've never turned him heel. I ain't going to turn him heel, right? So no one said it out loud, and I didn't allow myself to think that. So
yeah, that's interesting because
it's brilliant.
Because that was my thing when I saw him in there. I was like, something's got to be up, because he wouldn't just be in the ring for that long without something. And then the longer you so I was wondering if the fans kind of were thinking the same thing, like, okay, something eventually is going to happen. Like, why would Cena continue to be? But the other question I had for you about the live was for the women's chamber. I wanted you to kind of talk about what kind of reactions all the women were getting coming out and what they thought of the match in general, and kind of, because the women's division has been in kind of it's doing okay, but I feel like WWE could be doing a lot better with them. So talk about the reactions they got and kind of what they thought about the women's chamber match as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I feel what you're saying about the women's division. The last one I went to, Money in the Bank, that women's ladder match was the better of the Money in the Bank ladder matches between the men's and the women's. And that one was fire. Like, almost every woman was over. Chelsea Green had her really standout moment that night, I think. And this one was more like, everyone made their entrance and everyone got a cheer because, hey, a star's coming out. But then it just quickly, people just kind of settled down right afterward. Neither Bianca nor they, there was a pop for Naomi, and then there was a na 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 chant for her when Cargill got rid of her, right? So the crowd did settle down after the Cargill appearance, and honestly, even if Cargill was like in the match, I don't think they would have been as into her. There was a sense of respect, and there was a sense of, all right, wrestling's beginning. Some of us here sat through a 2-hour pre-show. We're going to get excited for some high spots. We're going to, Bianca's music is kind of catchy. It's still the after a wrestling show, like there's always a theme that I guess sticks in my head. Last show it was Solo Sikoa's theme for some reason. This time it's Bianca's theme. So it's just sort of random that way. But again, it's people are tepid on the women's division. Like I recorded because one of my friends is like super into Bayley, and I keep telling her that, look, Bayley she's people don't feel for her the way you feel for her right now. Like, she's a good talent, but people respect her, but they're not enthused by her. And that's, I think, what happened with the women's chamber. It was just it was a good match. It was well worked, but it was just kind of there. Like, there's just not much star power. And, who are you rooting for? It's like, okay, Alexa Bliss, but she's just back. She hasn't had any character buildup coming back, right? Liv Morgan, you're going to do that with Rhea Ripley for a 4th time. Bianca Belair would give Rhea a very good match, but it's like, I'm sure we've seen that a lot of different PLEs in a row. I just can't remember them, right? But Bianca sort of feels like been there, done that. So yeah, it felt tepid, to be honest. I think the tag match actually had a little bit more heat to it.
It felt like they came up for the back half of that match, specifically like when Belair whipped Morgan. Everything from that point forward felt like they kind of came alive for the rest of it. But it's interesting that you note that the tag match might have had a little bit more heat. That I was surprised when Trish came out. It felt like the reaction was a little bit muted, but I also wondered how much of that was just the stadium atmosphere. It's so hard to get a good read on the crowd when they're in a stadium, unless it's just like blow the roof off the place kind of reaction, the way that, the Cena Rock stuff did. Any other like specific reactions to people that you think were noteworthy?
The other person that I wanted to remark on was Damian Priest. He's the only person on this show who got no reaction at all, neither positive nor negative. And the only person, like Nia Jax and Candice LeRae came out, they got boos out of respect for their characters. Damian Priest got a whole lot of nothing. He got some boos, when he was delivering some offense, but then otherwise. And I think he got cheers for one of his eliminations. I can't quite remember now. It's been a long night. But that's what I was. So they're clearly building to that story with Drew. Drew's not turning babyface anytime soon. I've been to 2 shows now. Money in the Bank, when Priest was defending the World Heavyweight title, people were like, oh, Gothic Undertaker, Walmart Undertaker, and now they're just like, all right, we are the only guy in like of all the people that competed, at least in my section, people were just kind of like, okay, we're not going to pull our phones out. We're not going to stand up. So, I mean, I don't know how that translated on TV, but Damian Priest just isn't, just isn't a compelling figure right now, I guess.
It didn't help either. That, I mean, when you look at the star power in that match, he's clearly the odd man out. Even if you consider like Logan Paul, huge star outside of wrestling and huge heat magnet within wrestling. So Priest, for all the work they've done with him, and for as good as a lot of his work has been over the last 6 months or so, he definitely was the odd guy out in that match, and it certainly felt that way. Sean, anything else that you have for hitting here before we let him go?
Well, I was just say you talked about the just the women's tag probably having a better kind of reaction overall, and I figured obviously Trish probably got a good. What about Tiffany? Like, what were the fans thinking about Tiffany? Because I said during the you know, when she came out and she had the Tiffy time on her, you know, front and Toodles on the back. And I'm just like, I feel like she's leaning so much into the catchphrases and the cliches and all those kinds of things. I think the face run so far very early, but has been very flat, even though the fans are into her. So I wanted to, you know, see what you thought being in there, how they were actually reacting to Tiffany, and if she is as over as we've kind of seen so far on TV the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's bizarre. So Tiffany in Money in the Bank was sort of like Chelsea Green, had just overwhelmingly positive reactions. People are into her. There's little girls holding up Tiffy time signs. There's just something about her that connects with the audience. But again, you boil down her character, you know, it's sort of like The Rock when he turned babyface in 1999. He was still kind of a smug prick, you know, just torturing his interviewers and stuff. And Tiffany is just kind of like she's still, her character is just a smug prick, you know. So I don't know what it is about her. She connects to the audience. I mean, I enjoy watching her, but as a babyface, like I said, she's not someone that's sympathetic. I remember on SmackDown, I think yesterday, she had a moment where she's like, yeah, as an American, like Nia, like you know, discuss me sort of thing, when they were kind of trolling Canada and stuff. So she's not really, I think apart from that moment there, she's not even doing that much to pander to the fans other than rely on slogans. But no, the duo were great. Trish was obviously, you know, hometown favorite, and Tiffany, the hot tags for Tiffany were really good. I think it may have benefited from Trish getting those hot tags, but maybe she can't execute as well. But I mean, I didn't see Trish botch anything during the match.
Good.
So it was really, really good performance. So no, there's just something about Tiffany that I don't know, maybe we're just like too old school wrestling fans. I think fans these days they'll latch on to certain things that we just have to respect at the end of the day.
Cool. Hidden, anything else that you want to throw out there before we let you go? I know it's probably a late night for you, certainly for us as well. But this has been really cool. I'm glad that we got an in-person perspective here at the end of the show. So yeah, floor is yours. Anything else that you want to add about the experience?
Yeah, to anyone who hasn't been to a show, again, this was only my second ever wrestling show. Definitely go. These shows are worth it, and you know, capitalize on the popularity that WWE has cultivated for itself so far. Because I don't know how long this is going to last. So if you can afford a ticket, you know, definitely go. There's heat for 99. You know, we can nitpick as we do on podcasts, but there's really genuine wrestling love out there, and it's you walk around, you know, Toronto with like day-to-day life. You don't get to see fellow wrestling fans, but then you sort of you take the streetcar to the stadium, and you're like just among people who kind of share this hobby with you. And if you're, you know, among the people who just haven't had other friends of yours be into wrestling, it's a very good experience. It's a great way to even just, you know, strike up conversations, talk to people, see if you can, you know, click pictures for people that are there together or whatever. It's a fantastic experience, guys. So, no, thanks for having me so late on the show. Of course, it was a good experience all around, I'll say.
Yeah, for sure. It was super good to have that in-person perspective. It's always great to hear, especially with these stadium shows. You know, it's hard. It's really hard watching on TV to judge what the crowd is thinking in these stadium shows, and so having someone come on and be able to articulate that, especially on a show that was so consequential and had such a huge finish, is definitely beneficial to us all. So, Hitten, thanks so much for hopping on with us.
Totally. See you guys later.
Appreciate you, Hitten. See you, man.
Thanks again so much to Hitten for doing that. That was really cool. Didn't expect to have an in-person correspondent, but I'm super glad that we did. For again, like I said, just a very, very consequential show that we're going to be talking about for a really long time, and that sets us up really nicely on the road to WrestleMania. Sean, anything else that you think we didn't hit on regarding this show before we wrap this thing up?
I guess I'll throw the man, Randy. You were so pumped to have you back, and then you attack security guards. Man, oh man, oh man, RKOing with security guards. Those poor guys that just are trying to make a wage. Come on, man. So I mean, that just made me laugh. I mean, I still wouldn't have done it, but it, you know, Randy Orton's back. He's going to RKO people. I mean, I knew what was going to happen, but it was just kind of like, I'm with Wade on that. I just don't understand why they do that. It's just like, come on, man. Like, stop. We don't need to do that. But I just thought overall, yes, we need explanation a little more deeper into why Cena did what he did. That's understandable. You know, I'm ready for the round table now. Like, oh, this and this and this and this and this. Why they not? It was really, really well done in the moment. I thought it was just a really well played angle with Cena, and I'm actually now, even though I wasn't before, as a face in this random farewell tour that I just wasn't into, now I'm into, and I'm ready to see how they
Yep.
play after this and where they go. So I just thought it was a really fun show all around, and it leads, like you said, into some stuff for Mania. There's still stuff we got to see, and it's fun that we don't know every single thing, and that's good. We've in the past we've always known kind of where we're going, and we have to know everything. I think in this next month will be critical for them to tell these stories of these matches and kind of where we're going. But I think we're on a good track, and I think Mania is gonna be really fun, and this was a good show, and I'm glad, like I said, Hinton told us about what it was like being there, and yeah, it was good all around. I just and thank you, Brandon, for having me on, man. This has been a blast. I hope if you ever need someone, I'm glad to do it again whenever the time comes.
Yeah, man, I can think of many years in the past with Elimination Chamber or just the February pay-per-view in general, where it felt like we were slowing to a crawl and like, please, for the love of all that is decent, just get WrestleMania
Get
here
there.
because
Yep.
they are out of creative. And that is certainly not the case here. And not to say that we won't feel that way in like 6 weeks, because remember, we do have like 2 extra weeks of build to Mania this year.
It is.
So, I mean, don't be surprised if like the last couple of weeks we're all kind of lamenting, like, can we get to WrestleMania now? But they've got 8 weeks to go, man, before before we get to the big show. And there's a lot of story to still tell. I hope that they can stretch it out and make it feel worthwhile. But right now, we're in an exciting block of TV and programming, and that's a perfect way to segue into talking about PW Torch VIP. So many of the people on here with us live, of course, are already VIP members. But if you are not, now is the perfect season to give that a shot. pwtorch.com/go VIP. That will get you all of the podcasts, this podcast here on demand, of course, plus all of Wade's signature shows, the Wade Keller Pro Wrestling post shows without ads. You get the Fix with Todd Martin, the post-event roundtable podcast, which I know that Wade and company were recording when we went on live on the air here. So that is probably already up on demand for you to take a look at. Greg Parks Out Loud. Greg Parks, a frequent and excellent co-host of mine here on these post shows and former permanent host of Wrestling Night in America. You can catch his show of him doing an audio version of his weekly column for PW Torch. You also get everything with Rich and Wade and so much more. Pro Wrestling Then and Now. I could go on. Back issues. There is just so much content for your membership. Sean, of course, a longtime VIP member. That's how he gets on these shows and actually wound up, in this position as co-host with me tonight. And I'm certainly very glad to have had him here. Also, thanks so much to all of our people in the chat. The comments, we got plenty of them up on the screen here, and conversed with you guys all night. But thanks so much for participating. To our VIP callers as well, that was awesome. And as Sean already mentioned, having Hinton here was really cool to get that in-person perspective. And thanks so much to Brian as well. Sean, go ahead and plug anything you want to plug if you want to do that here before we sign off.
Yeah, you can definitely find me on Twitter/X. It's just my full name, SEANPLICHTA, and Blue Sky. I don't remember what it is. I get on there from time to time. I just don't remember. I just don't know why they had to make it so long. It's like, oh my gosh, like don't be so long. But you can find me there too. At my name, you can just look at up my name, and it's there. It's somewhere close to that. Yeah,
it's
like I said,
.b sky is .social something. I always forget to.
Yeah, exactly. But no, like I said, yeah, I've been a proud VIP member for getting close to 10 years now. I found Wade. I don't even remember how I found him. I just remember getting some calling on one of the shows, and I just it's been cool having the platform to talk wrestling with you and Wade and just everyone on the torch. It's been fun. It is like a family as far as wrestling goes. We just enjoy talking and really getting that nitpicking, loving whatever it is, like getting in the nitty gritty of it, and that's what we enjoy doing. So it's just fun. Thanks for having me on, Brandon. And like I said, it's just been a blast. It really has.
Yeah, really glad to have you. It was certainly a noteworthy show to make your official co-host debut, but you've been on plenty of times here with me, so nothing new in that regard. If you want to follow me, you can do so on Blue Sky at LeClair12 and the stuff I just mentioned, the at Sky social. You can also follow my work for PW Torch, both on the VIP side and the free site. My written reports, alt perspective coverage of all WWE premium live events and AEW pay-per-views. I do those live in real time along with the show, so you can follow along as you watch the show, or you can catch up with it later. If you're watching the show, you can just go through and check out my analysis, what I thought of each match. And then you can also catch me here after those said PLEs and pay-per-views hosting these special editions of Wrestling Night in America. I also occasionally will hop on as co-host with Wade Keller on the Pro Wrestling post shows as well. So plenty of ways to get my analysis and thoughts on wrestling here at the Torch. Again, I want to thank Sean. I want to thank our VIP members for both hanging around in the chat and for getting on here with us. There is going to be so much to talk about in the fallout here. I will be back next week with a totally different conversation. We'll be talking AEW Revolution next week. I'll have my report for that on pwtorch.com as well. So once again, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Until next time, this has been Wrestling Night in America.